This is something that I think we forget really often because we live inside of our minds really most of the time. We forget that we're a whole body and there's a brain in our body and that we are mammals. So we have all these really cool, amazing automatic things that happen in our brains and our bodies when we engage, when we have an experience, when we have interactions with our surroundings. So actually, trust biologically is kind of it's synonymous with connection. So distrust would be synonymous with disconnection. And why this is so heavy and such a huge kind of topic to discuss is because as humans, in order for us to survive, we have to feel like we are part of something. We have to feel like we belong, that we have community. And the opposite, being rejected, means like we actually, our system fears for our life because that's biologically what we're wired to do. So, if you take a look at the slide here, you can kind of see there's different parts of the brain. In the frontal part, there's your prefrontal cortex. So your prefrontal cortex was actually the last part of your brain to develop over thousands and thousands of years. And that's actually why Homo sapiens beat out other forms of man, because of the way that they were able to think and rationalize and problem solve. And they did this collectively, not individualistically. They did it collectively with goals and things to move forward with evolution. So the prefrontal cortex is kind of the things that we need to make really good decisions. So when we're doing pro-social kind of trusting behaviors, your prefrontal cortex is online and things are sort of making sense. When we are engaging in distrusting behaviors, that fires off a different part of our brain called the limbic system. And the amygdala is like a smoke alarm. It's like a fire alarm. It goes off. When that goes off, when we feel like we're rejected or we can't trust someone, that actually flips us into the fight or flight, which we all kind of know what that is. Why that's so important is because when we're in fight or flight, we can't access the prefrontal cortex. So we can't make really good decisions. So all these things are happening every time we either are engaging in behaviors where we are trusting someone or someone's trusting us, because there's this energetic thing that goes back and forth, or when we're engaging in distrusting behaviors or someone is doing that to us. You may kind of also know already that trust is more than a term. It's a feeling, right? Like you kind of feel like you can trust someone or you feel like you can't trust someone. That's absolutely right because the neurotransmitters that are being released when you're engaging in trusting behaviors are mostly oxytocin, but serotonin, a little bit of dopamine, those really feel good neurotransmitters. So when those are released in the brain, especially oxytocin, it makes like an imprint of whatever that experience is. So if someone is listening to something, so if you're at work and you kind of did a presentation and it didn't go well and you're doing a debrief after, and you sit down with your colleague and you're trying to debrief it, and the colleague is like looking at you, making eye contact, really listening, not interrupting, then actually oxytocin is released. So in both of your brains at that same time, there's like an imprint that's made. And it's like, oh, I want more of this to happen. So each of you walk away from that wanting to do more of that, wanting to be gentle and kind and open and caring. On the flip side, if you do a presentation at work and your colleague throws you under the bus, not willing to debrief, and obviously it's a really distrusting, rejecting situation, cortisol is pumping through your brain and into your body. And when cortisol is pumped into our brain and body, it induces stress. Boom, we're in fight or flight. And now there's all these things happening where we want to protect ourselves. We're getting defensive. It's the opposite of pro-social behavior. That's why we want to hermit. We don't trust anybody. So that's kind of biologically, physiologically what happens when we have these engagements of trust or distrust.